Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Heart and Mind podcast. I'm joined here again today with John Lawrence Fagan of multiple John Lawrence Fagan enterprises. And today we're going to talk about the primal living side of things and my whole discovery on how I got myself out of the dumps and how I really started discovering, I guess, what was in front of me all along.
Yeah. So we left off last episode. You had just about discovered walking on the beach, grounding, walking barefoot. I guess did that naturally lead into nutrition then for you?
It did, I guess, because I started to feel different. There was noticeable change in my mindset, and knowing full well that you are what you eat and all of that. I said, okay, well, if I'm getting this much out of taking my shoes off and literally touching my feet off the ground, well, what am I going to get if I start eating properly again? If I then couple that with some form of exercise that encompasses being outdoors, fresh air, I knew that going back into the gym scenario just wasn't for me, and I wanted to expand, and I wanted to look at what else could I get from the outdoors. So yeah, food was a big thing, and I guess looking at that, then it was a case of, okay, well, what do I want to do with that?
Yeah. What was the starting point for you? Did you look at keto, primal? Were you following any of there's obviously a few celebrities that lean on Jordan Peterson, someone we both listened to quite extensively, had been droning on about the carnivore diet for quite a while. So that was probably on your radar. What was your starting point?
I guess it would change. It had to be something different, and I really wanted to get away from. And this had been on my radar for a while, about getting away from measuring food. It really annoyed me, this eating out of Tupperware containers, weighing out things, and measuring your day to the gram. And if you went 5 grams over, or 5 calories over your daily allowance, you're going to get fat and all that rubbish. I really hate that side of.
Was that in your head, that kind of extreme mental side of beating yourself up if you went over your target?
It was in my. It was on my radar because I deal so much with it with people, for my my online programs and so on, and seeing how people develop such a very, very poor relationship towards numbers with food, let alone food itself. And I wanted to completely come back from that. But the main thing I wanted to look at was all these people. Let's just say, have a mental image in your head, or anybody listening now, have a mental image in your head of a hunter-gatherer. And just imagine the hunter-gatherer, with the bears, wearing the bear essentials. What is he going to look like? He's not going to be fat in the midsection. This guy is going to be chiseled. He's going to be athletic, borderline, more than athletic looking. He's going to be muscle bound more than likely. He's going to be rugged. He's going to be rough, and rightly so, because he's a hunter. Survival of the fittest. He's out there, and all of that. And he didn't have a weighing scales. And he didn't go home to, he didn't go home to his family in the evening that he was out hunting for to provide for all day, and his wife is there waiting for 100 grams of chicken, so it was a case of, okay, what would he have brought back, and he wouldn't have brought back a packet of this or microwavable this and all that. So I was there going, okay, well, what's he going to be bringing, and where's the food source going to be coming from? So they would have been growing their own crop for sure, and killing what they could, foraging for whatever, hunting for whatever, and literally living off the land. And in our case, where we are here in West Cork, seafood would have played a big part in that as well. Fish, shellfish, and literally whatever's around me. So it pushed me to think beyond, like, what can I get in the supermarket, and that's exciting because it's real, and it must work because we're here to think about it.
Yeah. And did you have some go-to meals that you kind of found out for yourself? Like, what would your typical day of eating would have looked like
So
at the start?
I knew that from playing around with removing refined carbohydrate out of my diet previously when I was competing, and knowing how good I felt running on fat, good fat, that was definitely something that I was willing to try again. And I knew that by running on a fuel source such as high fat, high protein diet, and eliminating carbohydrates completely, I'm talking about complex carbohydrates and refined carbohydrates, removing that out of my diet was going to make me feel less hungry. And just need to clarify that, because when you're eating quite a lot of carbohydrate, obviously your blood sugar elevates and dips and all of that, but that sends cravings, which seems like hunger, but it actually isn't. And I knew that by balancing my blood sugars, i.e. taking away carbohydrate to the most part out of it, and converting myself to produce ketones from a high fat, high protein diet, that I was going to be able to, have a more balanced kind of approach to meal timings, and eat, not all of a sudden this mad hunger coming on, because that's not normal, and that's only the case when you're using carbohydrate as a main fuel source. So my day would have kind of consisted really of starting the day off. It varied, but like, just to give you an idea of different foods. Okay, so eggs, they would have played a huge part in Primal. Cheese would have, dairy, that would have been there. There would have been your meats. Then we were using a lot of avocados as well. All these types of things that just were very, very calorie dense, very fat dense. And then obviously your meats, your fish, your protein
And
sources.
fattier meats, obviously. Lean,
Your meats, yeah.
not lean chicken breasts. Or
No,
anything.
lean was going out the window.
Yeah.
Any new wording that was associated with food had to go out the window, and it really, you really have to think about it as well. I mean, this isn't easily done either. Like, when you're someone that's used to, like, cooking was not something that really interested me at all, because time, I was just, it's just easier to bang something in the microwave. So even though it was maybe a prepared meal by someone, like a meal prep company previously, and you're then nuking that in a microwave, obviously just the level of nutrients is completely decreasing out of that meal by the time I got to eat it. I'm talking about when I used to, compete and stuff like that. So now you're actually you're getting your meat from your butcher, where obviously that's all locally sourced, and it's it's literally as clean as you can get. The eggs, we're able to get those locally, completely real free range ones, not so-called free range, and just starting to think about where that stuff is coming from. And it does make a massive difference,
Yeah. So did your workouts evolve on from, I mean, obviously steps on the beach, yes, is better than no exercise, but I guess compared to the intensity of what you were used to in the gym, you're talking massive weight, massive sets, massive reps, multiple hours per day. What did you do to or did you expand your primal training to the level of what you would have done previously in the gym?
They're so far removed, really, that it was going to be, again, like almost trying to forget the gym even existed, and being outdoors and going, okay, well, Primal our primates, our ancestors, what would they have done? They wouldn't have intentionally got up in the morning to go and train. It just wouldn't have been something that was even a concept. It was just, get up in the morning and try and survive. And what would that have entailed? It would have entailed going hunting, going looking for foods. It could have been, down to so much as climbing high ground, looking for, looking for somebody attacking your camp, your space, your family, to protect what you have. Because bearing in mind, I suppose, when they were growing their own crop, rearing their own animals, and so on, obviously, somebody was going to try and steal that. So, there was a lot of legwork. So fortunately, on my doorstep here, there's some, pretty beautiful places, but also some pretty labor intensive hills in that to either go climbing or running up, or climbing trees, or anything like that. So it was just a case of trying to, I guess, recreate a day in the life of what it would have been like to try and survive. And that then in itself then would give you an endorphin release. I can remember feeling really, really happy, when we're, even doing this on a daily basis, just because it was just, you're breathing in fresh air. There's no, as much as the clanging and banging inside in the gym is cool and all of that, and you can smell the person beside you or whatever, that's not cool. But listening to the birds and hearing the wind going through the trees, when you're in a wooded area, that stuff's cool.
I guess it's nearly a form of meditation at the same time.
Well, it is really, and you could, that transitions then into that as well,
Yeah, and did you explore any of there's obviously a lot of topics around primal living, not just the physical or the nutrition aspect, but I guess you touched on grounding, which is arguably something physical or non-physical, but things like meditation, sleep, kind of other aspects to replicate that primal lifestyle.
I did, yeah, and I bearing in mind that so this was all new to me, complete novice, just really not having a clue what I was doing. And going, okay, am I supposed to sit here and hum and face the east? What is one supposed to do? And I mean, so let's remove ourselves from the primal bit for a second. But if you Google, how to meditate, there's 6 million ways of doing it, and everybody thinks they're right in what they're doing. But I guess the reality of it is what is meditation? And I guess it might mean various different things to different people, but I get it for me, it meant trying to put myself present in the moment and trying to clear my head of noise, but being actually there and being present and understanding that the noise is actually okay, and it's impossible to empty your mind, as what people are saying to do, but just processing this kind of stuff that's there and letting it go, and just going, oh, I can see something moving over there, I never, or that's a really cool bush, or that's a really cool tree, or that's a really, and then going, geez, I just taking in all these things and just being and trying to be in the moment, I guess, really was really something that helped me just, I guess, process a lot of strange thoughts and kind of internal, problems that were going on with.
How did you find that at the start? Because I know a lot of people, as you touched on, a lot of people that try meditation for the first time get turned off by it within the first 60 seconds, 5 minutes, because just too much for them. And you naturally think, if someone tells you just sit there and do nothing, it's the easiest thing, but in reality it's one of the most difficult things you can do.
I think the biggest problem is people overthink this whole business of emptying your mind. I mean, that's an impossible task. How are you meant to empty your mind and sit there and going, it's empty now? I mean, that's rubbish. It's just never going to happen on anything unless you're sedated. So it was a case of trying to just slow everything down and understanding what's in my head and going, okay, just let me deal with this, and going, okay, well, let's finish it now, and then going, okay, slow it down. So it was difficult for someone that's always kind of, because my head's always somewhere else anyway. It was difficult to slow it down. But it's like anything, it has to be practiced. You don't get up one morning and automatically go, I have it today. It's just like you don't wake up one morning and go, oh, grand job, 6-pack is here today. It just doesn't work, It's all, this business is not a, it's not a quick fix. It's not you have to put in the work. Like, I mean, I'm still only new at it. Do I do it every day? No. But like, I'd like to think that I try on a daily basis to work on myself in some way, shape, or form. And my meditative approach has worked. I can actually use that on different aspects of my life now, so that if I'm in a day where I can't get away on my own and I can't sit in my own space or whatever, but if I'm actually doing something, I can actually now put myself into, okay, I'm going to try to meditate while doing this. And what comes from that then is flow. And today was actually one of those days where I was doing something and I got into a flow state. And I was like, this is it. I have it. And I got so much more done. I was so much more productive when you're in that flow state and you're not being bothered by, the external world or whatever,
Yeah. So how did you find your physical shape changing going into this primal stuff? You were doing primal workouts, so like hill running, beach walking, stuff like that. Anything specifically targeting the muscles, or?
Like everything got hit really, because if you're in the woods and stuff like that, there was loads of logs around, so you could mess around with that, gathering so-called firewood, as our ancestors would have done.
Farmers walks, I guess.
Yeah, there was all that kind of stuff, and like I say, like with a lot of this hill stuff, if I was hill sprints or even hill climbs or whatever, legs are getting a good workout on it as well.
So how did the physique change?
I guess because I had so much kind of muscle anyway, it came back pretty quickly, through muscle memory and stuff. But I did see a massive drop off in unwanted body fat for sure, by getting rid of the carbohydrate, and converting that fuel source over, and there was definitely, there was a noticeable difference. But the main thing that I was doing, from that was that, yes, I could see it, but I wasn't fixated by it, because it was more than that. And that was where it was before. It was when I was competing, it was all like looking in the mirror, measuring, and I didn't want to do any of that.
It was for physique rather than for health.
Physique. And I always said it to people that, and people say, geez, you're in great shape. This is previously. Like, you may look like you're in the best shape of your life, but you're in the worst shape mentally ever when you're in the best shape of your life when you're competing. It's so counterproductive, because you're overanalyzing every aspect of yourself. So that's why when I was doing the Primal way, there was days during lockdown I didn't even look at myself. I just didn't look in the mirror because I just didn't have any need to. Whatever, if I was showering, that was fine. I just dried myself and put on my clothes and all that, and there was no need to look in the mirror, because what was the point? So it was good in the sense of being able to just let go of those insecurities of how you look. But actually, in actual fact, what was happening was I was just looking better as the days went on, because I was just, doing physical things, eating well, and I was doing it consistently.
Yeah, doing what the body naturally wants to do and evolved to do.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's how we would have got here from, and biomechanically, I was doing everything that that I was meant to do with my body. And then it was obviously the going into the sea as well, and swimming and all of that. So it was every aspect of exercise touched on without even trying to exercise.
Did you find any disadvantages throughout this? For people at home listening to this, say they want to try the whole primal thing, whether it's the nutrition, the physical, both. Was there anything that stood out negatively, anything that was majorly difficult or had a negative impact on your life?
So there's going to be discomforts for sure. And I was an absolute wimp when it comes to cold water and temperature change in general, from a sensory point of view. So getting myself into the sea was definitely, I would say, the most challenging part of the whole lot. That might sound absolutely ridiculous to somebody listening right now, but that for me, like, I was so disciplined anyway with food and stuff before, so it didn't, like, the food end of it doesn't bother me, the exercise thing doesn't bother me, the mindset side of things, was definitely something I was working on anyway. But like jumping into cold water is just like, was the most disgusting part of what I wanted to try and change. But and you've seen this. No, look, let's call a spade a spade. It's the summertime, right? So the sea temperature is warmer now. But, right, I have never been in the sea in Ireland so much in the last 41 years of my life as I have done this year. And I'm quite fine to jump into the water now, and I'd be quite fine to jump into the water in October and November as well. Because realistically, it's not going to change temperature that much in the water, as it is now. But so I've definitely overcome that. So that was a thing of discomfort for me. For anyone, I guess, that was thinking of doing this, you would really want to think about your environment and the surroundings. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so let's say you want to do this, but you live with your family, and you've got children, and so carbohydrate is everywhere. But you'd like to try this, ketogenic or paleo diet, or or carnivore diet, whichever route you want to go down. You need to be prepared for there's a big change in what everybody else is going to be eating versus what you're eating. And just because you're doing it doesn't mean say you've got to get the whole family on board, but at least try it yourself first. So just be aware that there is a big switch in you eating something different than the rest of the house. But I would honestly say to anyone to try it once. If it's not for you, then then great, go back to normal or whatever your normal version of normal is. But just see how you feel from a mental and physical standpoint and give it a chance. It doesn't even have to be going down the whole primal route, but just try to remove all the new rubbish that we consume in liquid form and in food form, and just dial it back to keeping it simple and just see the changes. Give yourself, if you want to do it for 6 weeks, if you want to even do it for 4 weeks, and just see how you feel mentally, physically, and obviously how you look as well. Like, I would say if you don't see or feel changes, there's something seriously wrong, because it does work. There's no question about it.
Another aspect that I just thought of there, as you said, try get away from all the modern stuff. Something that came to mind there, the mobile phone.
Mm-hmm.
Was that an aspect of what you tried? Because in many sense, what we're consuming nutritionally, all of the modern bad things for us, you can also say all of the things in media, all of the things on social media. That's not very natural. That's not very primal, consuming all that.
For sure.
Did you get away from that?
Yes, to a degree, because I did notice that pre-lockdown, pre-COVID, all of that jazz, I was head in the phone. I was always on top of DMs. I was responding really quickly to everyone and all of that. And had to have the phone on me at all times. And I just got to a point during lockdown, before I went down the Primal route even, that I was just like, fuck the phone, and so what, like, I really took a turn towards that. But if you're going to go down the route of cleaning everything up in your life, you really need to audit everything you're consuming. That's a very good, that's a very good takeaway from that as well. Is just because you're on this new health kick, but next thing you throw yourself down and go an hour and a half watching reels or something, that's not, as you said, that's not very primal.
Or doing a forest walk with the phone out,
Exactly.
running up a hill listening to a podcast.
Yeah. Yes, you may be trying to better yourself by listening to a podcast, but realistically, you're not consuming the energy around you that you need to consume, and the frequencies and vibrations that are there, again, could be considered hocus pocus, but it's going to add to the experience of the thing. Like, whereas if you're listening to some rubbish music, going, somebody roaring and screaming at you in headphones, and even though it might look beautiful going up the thing, like, you're not going to get the experience of what your ancestors would have gone through. Like,
it's nearly trying to connect as many senses as possible to nature. Mm-hmm. And I guess even if you're running up a hill or something and you're consuming music or a podcast or whatever, your brain on some level must still be going, wait, I'm not fully in nature, because I'm hearing something that's not nature. Or whether you're walking along a beach and you're wearing shoes instead of going barefoot, you're disconnecting one or multiple of those senses from nature.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. And you could look at that and you could say, well, it's virtual. So you're almost there. You're within literally touching distance. All you got to do is take your shoes off, stop listening to the shit that you're listening to, and just listen to the waves crashing. That's a huge thing. Like, the waves, like I said earlier, the noise of trees, wind going through trees in a forest, trees swaying up against each other and creaking, right? Water breaking, coming into the beach, listening to it pull the grains of sand back out. They're sounds that most of us don't even know exist, let alone pay attention to. And that's magical stuff, like, because that makes you open and broaden your mind a bit more.
It's nearly like it activates some circuits in the brain that don't get used in everyday life.
And that wiring is there because of where we've come from. Hearing a bird take off and flap its wings, or potentially bang its wings off trees taking off, or whatever. That's again, you just don't take any notice of that when you've got earphones on.
Yeah, and it nearly acts as a reset for the endorphin and serotonin systems. If you're consuming constantly and getting all this stimulus in, and you root yourself back in nature, which is pretty much baseline. I mean, you can close your eyes, you can lock yourself in a room without sound, sure, to try and eliminate as many senses as possible. But I guess it's one of the more pleasant ways to reset your whole brain and get away from overstimulation.
For sure. And I guess, look, you as well, if you want to sample the route that I did, like, there has to be a certain amount of role play comes into it as well. Like, you have to put yourself back, wind the clock back. And it's actually fun. It's actually fun going, I wonder what they would have done, And I wonder, like, okay, so it was like the other day I went camping and I was just walking along. I was going, oh, it's cool time of year, some blackberries. So I just started eating all these berries. And would I have done that before? Probably, I guess. But, like, not to the extent of the appreciation I had for it this time round. Because I grew up in the country, and yes, I went out picking blackberries as a child and stuff like that. Like, but I wouldn't have eaten blackberries in recent years. But, like, seeing them and, and then, cooking, I was cooking outside, and it was just great. And I was just there, this is not me at all, But it was fun. you know, and it is fun. And do you know what it is? It's simple. Keeping it simple. I mean, how many hotels have I stayed in my life? Fucking shitloads. You know, what is a hotel? Realistically, you walk into a room, go, oh, that's a nice room. Oh, that's a big television. Oh, that's a nice bed. But that bed's uncomfortable. They stuck 2 beds together. You know, oh, the bathroom's big. I mean, like, you know, what are you talking about? Like, you know, and then you complain then because the person in room service didn't say hello properly or something, or, you know, they shouldn't be doing that, should they? What the fuck are we talking about here? Like, you know, so room service, you know, somebody is bringing you something and you've a problem with how they're looking at you. Of course, they're fucking pissed off. They hate life. What do you want, a servant? No. So, like, this is the thing that we're so lost. And the more I think about that, and the more I think about the entitlement that we've created for ourselves about, you know, how, oh, that's not hot enough, or the Wi-Fi's pretty slow here, or all of this is like, okay, what are we talking about? And you have to go through this to understand it and to be appreciative, I guess, of how simple life can be, and actually how happy you can be when you make things way more simpler. Just keep it fucking simple, like.
And nature ties into that as well.
Yeah.
Many people say nature is humbling. You know, if you go out into true nature, as far as the eye can see, and you realize how small you are. I mean, yes, many people are in a city, and there's the stereotypical thing of you can be in a city around lots of people and still feel lonely. But on the other hand, if you do that in nature, it's nearly a positive sense of isolation, and it makes you realize you're part of all this, you've evolved from all this, and it just humbles you. And then when you reintegrate into society, so to speak, all of what you just talked about, the entitlement, it's a lot more removed. It's a lot more distant. It's a lot further away from that whole grounding yourself in nature.
Yeah, it's humbling for sure. But what it also does when you like when I came back into society again, because like bearing in mind that we're in lockdown and it's, you know, things aren't normal, you know, so pretty isolated from everyone in my own little bubble, in control of, you know, quite what everyone I'm interacting with is controlled by me, so to speak. Whereas not so much now that we're back to normal, you know, there's more people around, there's more traffic on the road, so on and so forth. But what that allowed me to do now was to really audit the people that I wanted to interact with. And it doesn't mean to say that you have to not speak to people, but, you know, there's a difference between acknowledging someone and, you know, saying hello to them and, you know, being as civilized and as nice as you can to people that you know. But like, there's a big difference between that and actually stopping having a conversation with someone and going, you know, okay, I actually want to engage with this person, like, you know.
It's another big contrast if you think about how our ancestors would have lived in smaller tribes, maybe 30, 40, 50 people in a small settlement. And today, social media. How many followers do you have?
Oh, fuck, it's too many. Yeah.
Thousands.
Yeah.
How many normal people now? It used to be a case, okay, people know maybe 100 people, 150. The average person has probably 10,000 online connections.
Yeah.
And our brains did not evolve to process that. It's too much.
Yeah, the numbers are too. It's very hard to comprehend that amount of people that you actually know, because, you know, you automatically assume that's not real. You know, I don't know that many people. I know 1,000 people. Yeah, probably, like, you know, 1,000 people. You put 1,000 people. Imagine 1,000 people in a hall or stadium or something like that. You go, yeah, that's pretty right. And you go, well, no, it's not, because like think of the time that you've been on the planet. Think of all the experiences you've been on and how many times you've been introduced yourself, or, you know, different avenues you've gone down, all these different things. Like, fuck, it's a lot of people.
next episode, what are we going to do?
Next episode, I think we'll probably take it away from talking about lockdowns and primal living. I think we've covered all of that, but I'd really like to go down the route of business, and I'd really like to talk about the adaptation that has happened to my business, and how it could actually, how this adaptation could work for somebody else's business as well, and thinking outside the box, So there's lots to be unpacked in the next episode, which will be episode 3, if you would like to join me for it. And we can discuss it further, because you're quite involved in this as well. So I'd like you to join me on episode 3, actually, Jan, please, to guide the conversation.
And we will have other guests in future, we promise.
Yeah. You will,
not just the two of us.
You'll get kicked off shortly.
Fantastic.
All right, guys, thank you for listening and watching, if you're watching as well. So yeah, brings us to an end of episode 2, and we will see and hear, and I'll talk to everybody on the next one, episode 3. So until then, I'll talk to you all soon.